The medieval and Renaissance galleries here are home to one of the world's most remarkable collections of treasures from this period. They range from delicately carved ivories, delicately carved wooden pieces, intricate metal works, Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks, powerful sculptures. All of these tell the story of European art and culture from around 300 AD to 1600 AD. There's also an exceptional collection of sculptures by Donatella, the most influential sculpture probably of the 15th century in Italy. A lot of his stuff is presented here in this gallery. Of course, we also have works that explore the wider context of Italian artistic production, such as this by Antonio Mantegazza, The Lamentation over the Dead Christ by Belano. This again is a fascinating place. And this gallery is rather interesting because it examines how design ideas were exchanged within and outside Europe. So you'll find a lot of beautiful objects here. Sometimes these were designed specifically for the Western market. Some were imported into Europe, and Islamic and Chinese techniques, you'll see these in these boxes, were imitated by European craftsmen. So exploration, conflict, diplomacy all played a part with traditional trade relationships with the Islamic world. And of course, this was complemented by new markets in the Far East and the New World. So this interplay, this intermingling, this social intercourse is reflected in some of these objects that you find in this gallery. So we are moving from the medieval to the Renaissance here. And here you'll find that the rich decorations and furnishings of the domestic interior, this forms largely the setting of this room. And the displays that you see here explore various aspects of life and social ritual. You'll find luxury goods. There's a beautiful piano out there, jewelry, furniture, armor, impressive displays on dining. You'll also find a bunch of niches, a selection of treasures and curiosities that a Renaissance collector may have assembled, and you'll find a lot of objects that have really no intrinsic purpose other than, of course, beauty itself. Here's an example of some very, very beautiful objects from the Renaissance period. This is, I guess, non-utilitarian beauty for beauty's sake. Hi, I'm Samir Jain. It's impossible to talk about China in a few minutes. I mean, China is a world into itself. So the decorative arts were very important in Chinese culture, and much of the finest work was produced in large workshops or factories by essentially unknown artists. Isn't it the same even in this century? Most of the best ceramics and textiles was produced by imperial factories and distributed on a massive scale to demonstrate the wealth and power of the emperors. The two main techniques in Chinese painting, and I hope we can get to see some of these, are gongbi, which means meticulous, and it uses very highly precise, detailed brush strokes or brush painting. Artists from the Han to the Tang 6th, 7th century dynasties primarily painted the human figure, while the time from the 5 dynasties period to the Northern Song period, which is around the 12th century, is known as the Great Age of Chinese landscape. There was a lot of bronze too. So Chinese ritual bronzes, you see some here, from the Shang and Western Zhou dynasties, still exert an influence over Chinese art. There are large examples of religious sculpture which is primarily Buddhist with dates from the 4th to the 14th century. As I said, this is a world unto itself, and it would be impossible to describe, to even begin to discover the wide gamut of Chinese art, Chinese architecture, paintings. Absolutely fascinating. Hi, I'm Samir Jain at the Victoria Albert Museum. The British silver on display here is absolutely awesome. This place contains a wide range of silver from the 1800s to the early 1900s, and the objects on display here have been grouped according to different themes, styles, techniques, and these include things like, and I don't know exactly what they mean, alteration and faking, color, surface treatment, even royal patronage. You'll find grand display plates. You'll find elements of dining in style, writing, lighting, exhibition pieces, early 20th century tableware, Victorian dining silver. Look around. So it seems that the silver galleries here have more than 3,500 pieces from the medieval period to present day, including pieces made by some of the world's most celebrated silversmiths and goldsmiths. You'll find enormous flamboyant table centerpieces made for earls. You'll find silver rattles with attachments of coral for treating. You'll find wine coolers such as here. You'll find delicate bands of silver lace for decorating dressing tables. You'll find Elizabethan gentlemen's gambling counters, a collection of miniature silver toys, and you'll be able to find out new fashions for drinking coffee, tea and chocolate at the end of the 17th century. It's a place to marvel at the inventiveness of the makers of cheap silver substitutes like a Sheffield plate. It's a great place to learn about the silver hallmarking system. Take a look around. Absolutely riveting. Thousands and thousands of pieces here. I've seen a 3rd century Roman ointment pot, a 16th century Mexican perfume burner, a table created in 2012 by Miriam Hanid. It also holds the national collection of silver and has strong collections of European silver, particularly from Spain and Germany. And amongst these objects are some extraordinary survivals. There's an English incense holder and a censer that's made around the 14th century for the monks of Ramsay Abbey. These were discovered in the mud of a drained lake, while you'll also see an exquisite frame made for Louis XIV of France. It's said to be the only surviving work of royal goldsmith Pierre Jamin. The collection of objects that are used in worship is pretty vast here. There's a sacred silver collection. It's made for Catholic worship, Catholic and Protestant actually, from Britain, Europe and beyond. There's also a small but significant collection of Judaic objects that is used in Jewish worship. The collection dates from early medieval times to 2010, 2014. And it's interesting to realize that the Christian church has always been one of the most important patrons of the goldsmith's trade, and throughout its history, precious vessels of gold and silver have played an important role in the rites and ceremonies as they have in Jewish faith. Some of the finest examples of this art can be seen in silver that's made for worship. Take a look at this. And some elaborate pieces were designed to evoke awe. Now this evokes awe, doesn't it? So the richness or simplicity of sacred vessels that they have here reflects different ideologies within the Christian church. And at various stages of the church history, special kinds of silver have been made in response to concerns and beliefs. Their vessels for venerated remains of saints, crosses for processions, arms, dishes for the collection of gifts for the poor. And this diversity, it's not just silver, it reflects the complex history of the church and the living faith of its members. I encourage you to spend a couple of hours in this gallery and check out some of the best silver that exists in the world, perhaps. Thank you for listening in. Hi, let's look at some stained glass now. The earliest stained glass panels at the Victoria date from around the 11th century or so. And although a few earlier examples exist elsewhere, it was only after the mid-12th century that figurative stained glass was widely used throughout Europe. So we have so many paints here that are made of small, irregularly shaped pieces of colored glass. You might be able to see some here. And the glass is colored by adding metallic oxides, and this is known as pot metal. The colored glass is then cut into shape following a cartoon or pattern, and the pieces are held in place by strips of lead. And then you'll find details such as eyes and folds, look at the drapery there if you can, are then made with a fine brush. Maybe you can see it here. And the paint is a simple pigment composed of iron or copper filings and a ground glass compound. It seems that the making of stained glass windows, as you'll see here, has hardly changed since the 12th century. And a stained glass window essentially consists of pieces of glass that are held together in a latticed web of lead. And the glass has previously had details of faces, hands, drapery, painted, such as this one here. And all of this is fired, and on it black or brown paint or other colors too are applied. So around the year 1300, yellow stained glass was discovered. There are different colors too. So this had the ability to turn white glass yellow or blue glass green, and was extremely useful in highlighting things like hair, halos, crowns that you see embodied here. So stained glass continued to flourish in England until the Reformation of the Church in the 1500s, when changes in religious outlook undermined the need for sacred art. Here is a wonderful, wonderful collection of stained glass in England, and it's a place you must not miss if you ever visit here. Thank you so much for listening in. This is gorgeous Islamic art. Islamic art is not art of a specific religion or time or place or of a single medium, as you see here. Instead, I learn it spans some 1400 years. It covers many, many lands and populations, and it includes a range of artistic fields: architecture, calligraphy, painting, glass, ceramics, textiles, amongst other things. So here's the interesting thing. Islamic religious art differs from Christian religious art in that it is non-figural, because Muslims believe that the depiction of the human form is idolatry, and therefore it is a sin against God. It's forbidden in the Quran. So calligraphy and architectural elements are given a lot of important religious significance. So Islamic art developed from many sources: Roman, early Christian art, the Byzantine styles. There's also Sasanian art of pre-Islamic Persia. There are Central Asian styles that are brought together by various nomadic incursions. There are Chinese influences. You'll see it here on Islamic painting, on pottery, on textiles. So this whole concept of Islamic art, it encompasses the visual arts produced from the 7th century onwards, when Islam was formed, by both Muslims and non-Muslims who lived within the territory or was ruled by Islamic populations. So it's very difficult to define what exactly is Islamic art, because it covers many lands, many populations. And this art is, as I said, not of a specific religion, time or place, or single medium. Instead, and this has been a learning experience, it covers a range of artistic fields, things like architecture, calligraphy, painting, ceramics, textiles, amongst other things. And of course, it's not restricted to religious art, but instead includes all the art of the rich and varied cultures that came to become Islamic societies. The interesting thing is, it frequently also includes secular elements and elements that are forbidden by some Islamic theologians. So it differs greatly from most typical forms of art that we think are art. Fascinating place, this one. Thank you. Hi, you'll see some good examples of Jain art, which is stylistically similar to Hindu or Buddhist art, though its themes and iconography are specifically Jain. So common themes in Jain paintings and sculptures are the Tirthankaras, this is an example, or saviors, the Yakshas and Yakshinis, or supernatural guardian deities. You also have symbols such as the lotus and the swastika, which represent peace and well-being. So Jainism is a trans-theistic religion prescribing non-violence towards all living beings. It originated in the Indian subcontinent around the 6th century, I guess. It has influenced and contributed to many artistic spheres in India: painting, sculpture, architecture. So modern and medieval Jains have built many temples, and most of them are in Western India. The earliest Jain monuments were temples based on the Brahmanical Hindu temple plan, as well as monasteries for Jain monks. So there aren't too many of these that are around, so I was surprised to discover some great pieces of Jain art here. It's very close to Buddhism in many ways, but I guess there are subtleties and differences, and I guess you can discover them here for yourself. Thank you. Hi, we are in the Japan exhibit. I won't be walking around because these guys dissuade that. But I'll give you a sense of what's here. It starts with the prehistoric art of Japan, which begins with the Jomon period, the first settlers of Japan. So the Jomon period, the people were named for the cord markings or decorative impressions that they made with the rope. It's found in the pottery of this era. So Jomon pottery is said by many scholars to be the oldest that was ever discovered. Of course, what you see here is much more recent. By recent, I mean probably a few hundred years old. So in the middle Jomon period, simple decorations on the pottery gave way to highly elaborate designs, flame vessels, crown formed vessels. These are amongst the most distinctive forms from this period. They also have some great clay figures. They call them dogu. They are often described as goggle-eyed features, elaborate geometrical designs, said to have religious and ritual significance. After that, there were the Yayoi period. They arrived in Japan around 350, 300 BC, and they brought knowledge of wetland rice cultivation, the manufacture of copper weapons, bronze bells, wheel, kiln-fired ceramics. So these artifacts brought to the islands at this time, they had a powerful effect on the development of Japanese art by presenting objects to imitate and copy, such as bronze mirrors, such as swords, such as dress accessories. So there's some great Yawai pottery, and I hope I'm able to show you. But if I'm not, in general, this pottery tends to be a lot smoother than the earlier Jaman period, and it more frequently features decorations made with sticks and combs rather than rope. And the major symbols of this culture are the bronze mirror, the bronze sword, and the royal stone. So the craft specialists here also made bronze ceremonial bells, and I think it's called dotaku. After that came the Kofun period from 250 BC or AD, I don't know my dates. It's the oldest era of recorded history of Japan, and it is characterized by the Shinto culture that exists prior to the introduction of Buddhism. And during this Kofun period, the leader of a powerful clan won control over much of West, what is now West Honshu, and the northern half of Kyushu, eventually establishing the imperial house of Japan. So the word kofun is Japanese for the type of burial mounds dating from this era, and many of those were surrounded by moats. There are some descriptions here. There's also some unglazed pottery which comes in many shapes. Some of it is round, but round and square seems to be most common. This again is a very, very old civilization, goes back thousands and thousands of years, and our popular notions of Japanese culture relegated to just the samurai are in fact do this rich culture injustice. This is a great place to visit. Thank you. Hi, I'm Sameer Jain. The theatre collection here is an incredible resource that documents current practice as well as the history of most areas of performing arts in the UK. Things like drama, dance, opera, circus, puppetry, comedy, musical theatre, costume, pantomime, set design, popular music, and much, much more. So this collection here was founded in the 1920s when a private collector, Gabriele something, donated her extensive collection of theatrical designs, memorabilia, books, and photographs to this museum. And since then, the collection has continued to grow to now include significant objects and works of art. In addition to what you see here, costumes, there's a lot of manuscripts, audio-visual recordings, and the archives of performing arts have a lot of stuff from companies, performance theaters, stage designers, as well as a collection from private collectors. This wonderful gallery is a tribute to Raphael, and rightly so. For centuries, Raphael has been recognized as the supreme high Renaissance painter, perhaps even more versatile than Michelangelo, more prolific than their older contemporary Leonardo. So though he died early, 35-40, Raphael's example as a paragon of classicism dominated the academic tradition of European painting until the mid-19th or so century. So his early paintings were also greatly influenced by Perugino, and when he became an independent master, he worked throughout central Italy. Some of these you'll see here, particularly Florence, where he became a noted portraitist and a painter of Madonnas. Very young, at the age of 25, he was called to the court of Pope Julius something to help with the redecoration of the papal apartments. In Rome, he evolved as a portraitist and became one of the greatest of all history painters. Raphael remained in Rome for the rest of his life, and on the death of Bramante, he was appointed architect in charge of St. Peter's Church. This man was a genius. Here's some more stuff. Absolute genius. Thank you for listening in.